Hello, everybody. It's Graham Cofe with another My Music. Thanks for joining us wherever you are today. If you're listening back to this on the old Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, drive carefully, don't crash. In a minute, I'm going to be speaking to Simon or Sice from the Boo Radleys. So we all remember them. We all woke up with Boo many years ago in the 90s. But you know, he's been doing other things since. Just in case you thought that was it, or that was the beginning of their career, even, because actually it started well before that. And we'll be finding out about what he's doing now. But first, let's have a little bit of this video.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
Sice, thanks for joining me. How are
You're
you?
welcome. Pleasure. I'm really good, thank you. Yeah, really good.
Good. You told me you're in Padstow at the moment, which is a lovely part of Cornwall.
Yeah.
I assume you've been nipping out for a Cornish pasty before you get
I
going
had
this
one.
morning.
I had one yesterday. That was my lunch yesterday.
Did you?
I haven't had one for years. Yeah, didn't like it very much, to be honest. But
Well, if you're going to have a Cornish pasty, it has to be from Padstow, really.
yeah, absolutely.
There's
yeah.
about 3 shops in Padstow that do a really nice Cornish pasty.
Yeah.
Is Rick Stein's little restauranty thing still there as well in Padstow?
Yeah. We had a look at that last night and decided to go somewhere else. It was a
Yeah,
little
well,
bit
you know, the
pricey for what
prices.
we wanted. Yeah. Yeah, it was a bit pricey for what we wanted.
Now, listen, I thought to make this slightly different and a little bit fun today. You know, you are now a chartered psychologist,
hmm
which is interesting. I think if I'd have lived my life again, I might have been a chartered psychologist.
Right.
Yeah, because I think you had a similar thing in terms of your own education, which is that you probably should have gone that route fairly early on, but actually you went somewhere else.
Yeah.
I was similar because my school weren't very good at career advice, and so when I got to the point where I'd started to decide upon my next options, as it were, I was in a band at that time, and I was
Right.
writing a lot of poetry, and I said that I wanted to be a poet, and they told me no, you can't do that. You must want to do publishing. But then the options that were given to me were art, because I was doing, was good at art, and English. And that was it, really. And then I happened upon a communication studies degree, and I thought, I'll go and do that because nobody knows what it is. And I got to university and they didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. A major part of that course, and by the time I got to the third year, I was kind of majoring in psychology because the psychology aspect of it, the course, and you could choose which modules, was the most interesting to me.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you a little bit about what got you into psychology in a minute. But what I thought we'd do as part of this is really kind of very quickly, because we haven't got a lot of time because you're going to get thrown out of your room, talk about your career, but you analysing it from the point of a psychologist. How about that?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We could do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, my career, as career as a psychologist, or the whole thing?
Your whole career, yeah, your whole kind of life journey. I think that would be quite interesting as a psychological review of it. So let's start with kind of the early years. What what happened in those early years to get you into a band for a start?
Well, this is your story, sort of very similar to mine, really. And as soon as I saw Top of the Pops, I knew that was what I wanted to do. I guess that was my sort of first early exposure to bands and to the music business. And I knew that was what I wanted to do. Similar to you saying, I wanted to be a poet. I wanted to be in a band. And of course, I didn't even say that to any careers advisors, because it's not something you can say, it's just something you believe. So despite being sort of, I guess, trying to go along the academic route, all I was interested in was being in a band. And even though I was kind of doing A levels and stuff, I didn't even turn up for some of my A level exams the first time round, because I was doing stuff with the band. For those A level years, it was just me, Tim, and Martin, just being in each other's rooms, but in each other's houses, playing guitars. And I think we probably did our first gig around then as well. So that was it.
What sort of age was that then? So you're talking sort of 16, 17?
I think we were 16 or 17. Yeah, we played. I think the first thing we ever did was we played in a mate's back garden. He had a barbecue, and we had the three of us and a drum machine, and we did that. And then I think it wasn't long after we started getting little pub gigs. We'd do like 20 minutes in a pub or something down New Brighton, and then it started sort of picking up. Then we'd sort of get gigs in Liverpool and things. So that was around the time, but we were having to work at the same time. I was working in Pound Stretcher for just to kind of keep life and soul together as well, while the band was happening. But then we were able to. One of the godsends was we were able to sign on at that point. We were able to claim income support, which for the first couple of years of actually, I think this was like 89, 90. That kept us alive, because we were able to sort of at least pay rent, have a little bit of money, and then spend all our time living in a van going up and down the motorway. So we just, in a psychological sense, looking at that, there was a determination to get something there, a belief that would kind of bring happiness, that was what I wanted to get, and throughout that, we had a determination. That's one of the strange things that I think is actually looking at the quality that is often underestimated when we're dealing with kind of psychological issues, which is resilience. We were enormously resilient, because we just basically never gave up. No matter how many sort of knocks we had or how difficult things were, we just never gave up. And so eventually, we kind of got there, and, like you said in your intro, it feels like we sort of started in 1995 when Wake Up Boo landed, but actually, we were going 5, 6, 7 years at that point. We'd been kind of going at it. So, and
you had critical acclaim for your output before Wake Up.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So what did that bit feel like, and what did that do to you as a band?
It's really interesting, because I think that that was it was very split. I think that Martin felt huge kind of pleasure in that kind of critical acclaim. We were all massive readers of the music press, but I think it felt like validation, but it also felt like there was something missing. And, because actually for me, it was that whole Top of the Pops thing. It was the whole kind of, it wasn't just the critical acclaim, that was fine, but the
pop star bit hadn't happened yet.
The pop star bit definitely hadn't happened. And so, and so there was a kind of, it was strange. There was almost a dissatisfaction. And actually, our record label Creation, they were exactly the same. They were kind of like, critical acclaim's good and everything, but you need to sell some records, so it was kind of, that
we need to make some money now, chaps. Come on.
Well, basically, yeah, that was it. So there was a push for that. That was the kind of push. It was like, well, it's all very well being critically acclaimed, but you need to sell some records. And also, that was the culture of the time. The indie suddenly became the mainstream. Everybody was kind of crossing over to the mainstream. It was Ride, Primal Scream, all these Creation bands. And so we were kind of, told you need to do the same sort of thing, which we wanted anyway.
But you were taking a giant leap forward.
Giant steps.
Yeah. But the thing is, so you have this critical acclaim, and then all of a sudden you have this hit record.
Mm.
How easy was that, creating that hit record? Because by that time, presumably, you had kind of a building pressure on your shoulders, as you say, to actually create something that was a little bit more commercial, etc. Did it actually come easily, creating that, or was it?
No.
Did it feel a bit forced?
It felt forced in the it was the only, it's strangely, it was one of the only records. I think we did it earlier on with one, but it was probably one of the only songs we've ever done where we re-recorded it, where we said we're not happy with the first time round. And I don't think it was just us that wasn't happy. It was we were coming back after Giant Steps, and it was this song, and it had to be right. It had to be a hit. Rather than, I think before, it was far more organic. We just kind of, look, what we come up with is what we come up with. We release it, it's okay. But this particular thing was like, right, you're coming back off the back of a commercial thing. Sorry, of a critically acclaimed thing. It's got to be commercial. So the first version of Wake Up Boo was very, very different. It was a lot more indie. It was a lot more subdued. And then basically we kind of were sort of encouraged to go away and re-record it and make it more commercial. So that's when it kind of got that Motown backbeat. It got that. It got the horns.
Whose idea was the big brassy type?
I honestly can't remember. The demo. The demo had brass on it. The demo had trumpet on it, but it was more of a solo. It was more of a solo line. There is a out on YouTube. I think that the original recording is out there somewhere. So it's got more of a sort of solo trumpet line. So when it kind of came to it, we just decided it needs to be bigger brass, really. And I think it was just kind of. I remember we were in Rockfield Studios, and it just so happened that Tom Jones was playing Cardiff. So his brass section, I think, were around, and somebody said, "Let's just get them down." And they came down.
It's a great tip for any musicians, by the way. If you want a brass section or an orchestra, steal somebody else's. It's much
absolutely
cheaper.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, they know what they're doing. yeah. So we nicked them. They came down and played, and that was kind of, as far as I remember, that was kind of it. It was kind of done then. Once that the song was always there. The all the backing vocals, all the harmonies, all the melodies, they were already there. It was just the only difference was the sort of the rhythm and these big brass horns.
Yeah. So the dopamine kicked in because this massive thing's happening, and for anyone that lived through that period, I remember that was one of probably 3 songs that I know me and my friends had constantly on over a summer period. I think that Blur was in there as well, and the Charlatans were in there with and it led to a lot of creativity from a lot of other people. I don't know whether you would have picked up on that at the time, but you may have picked up on that in later years as people came to you and said, I started a band because you did this. But how quickly did the euphoria, if you like, die off? Or
very, very quickly. I mean, that psychologically, that's a very interesting thing, really, is that what we realized is that what I was looking at was the Top of the Pops thing was a kind of mirage, was a kind of I felt that it would bring happiness. I felt that it would make everything okay, and of course it didn't. What I realized was that actually I wasn't any different, didn't feel any different, still had the kind of same stresses, still had the kind of same worries, and it really happened very, very quickly. I think it was almost, I almost kind of said, we've always said that album that was released on the back of that single went to #1. And it almost felt that as soon as we'd done that, that was the beginning of the end. That was kind of, I think the biggest blow for us actually was when we released the next album.
I was just going to ask you about that. Do you feel cheated about the next album in a way? Because I have a theory on this, which is that had you released Wake Up as your first album, and then you'd release the next album, right? Which was really, I think some people at the time thought, what on earth were you doing? But actually, as a band, you were just reacting to the last thing that you'd made, right? Which is what all bands should do. And it was you trying to push yourself forward again. If it had been if it had been the second album, maybe things might have taken a different trajectory.
Yeah.
But maybe because you were like, this was like so many albums in, it wasn't. Because you look at things, people like Blur, for example, they put out Leisure, and then they completely did a swift turnaround, and next album, Modern Life is rubbish, or a lot of examples of bands where the first album, classic in a way, but then they decided, well, actually that's not us, this is us, and it worked for them. But yeah, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was cheated. I think we feel probably disappointed about the way that Come On Kids was received, because I think we just, we were, one of the things that we did feel excited about was the fact that people had bought the Wake Up album, so people now knew us. So we thought, brilliant, all these people are going to buy the next album, so let's give them something new, let's give them something exciting. Our role model has always was the Beatles, and one of the things was that everything was different. The incredibly, they moved on in the space of 2 years from just kind of doing straightforward kind of rock and roll pop songs to Sergeant Pepper's, in a couple of years. So that's what we wanted to do. We were kind of like, let's do something really different, and it was kind of the worst thing was, I don't think we were really given a chance, because it wasn't even that people didn't like it. It was that it was immediately cast as this attempt to sort of shed fans, which was just the weirdest. I don't know where that kind of came from. It was just the weirdest take on what a band would do. So I think it was kind of quite disappointing. It was quite demoralizing, especially when it was kind of we would see other bands around at the same time. Come On Kids was released before OK Computer, and we would kind of see that whereas other bands were being lauded for experimentalism, we were told we were being awkward. And that was so it was kind of, it didn't really make a lot of sense. So I think that did knock a lot of the wind out of our sails. I think at that point we just kind of felt, don't really know what's going on here.
Yeah, I guess time helps with all of those things, doesn't it? And retrospectively looking at it, because I guess a lot of people since have actually said, do you know what, that's a damn good album. And actually it really worked coming out of that last album, and it just as you say, you had a lot of, the press didn't really help you particularly at that time, I don't think, in terms of the story, the narrative behind it. But what did you learn as a person? What did you learn from that?
From the experience of the Come On Kids?
Yeah,
it's a really interesting one, because I look back now and I kind of think it was just, I don't think I learned anything from that particular process, but I think what I learned was that actually we were chasing something that was impossible. I look back now and I think that actually the process of something is far more important than the outcome. I actually think the process of having made that album, producing that, is far more enjoyable, and that's all that matters. What matters is that album is there, and it's been made, and as far as the music was concerned, we were in charge of our own destiny, and that was really important. I think it also helps to realize that we're not in control as much as we like to think we are. We're not in control, and these things will just happen, whether we want them to or not, and you just have to accept that and just make the best of it.
So as any psychologist will know, relationships are important, an important part of somebody's psyche. So you get to the end of the 90s, there's a breakup, there's a divorce in a way. How did that impact you, the band stopping?
It was fine, it was really strange. I mean, I look back now and I think that we were sort of I look back and think it was a bit of a mistake because essentially we were all just tired. I mean, we were just, I look back and me and Martin especially, we kind of wanted a break. I don't think we particularly wanted to split the band up, but we wanted a break. But again, our role model was always the Beatles, and you didn't, back then, bands didn't kind of take hiatus. If you were done, you were done. And that's what we thought. It's like, okay, we're done. And we were done. We were both. I look back now, and I think we were probably all a bit depressed. We were probably all a bit burned out. We were all really tired. We'd been at it for sort of 12 years, and interest had really, really waned. We didn't realise that that there is this kind of strange. There's often a kind of strange process whereby bands will kind of go down, but then they'll go away, and then they'll come back, and they'll be kind of reappraised and kind of I do there's an alternative timeline where we didn't split up, we just took a break, and we came back in like 2008 and picked up where we left off, and people were interested, so there are always these alternative timelines around, but the split was just, it was more sort of resigned than anything. It wasn't acrimonious, it wasn't problematic, it was just resigned. It was just like, well, we're done. It felt like we weren't selling records. Creation Records went down as well, so we kind of lost our home. So it was just a bit, well, we're done really.
And then we move on to the next thing, which is that. So almost I'd like to call, we're all more than the sum of our parts, and it's something that the next phase is something that I think a lot of people went through during COVID, which is that it stopped lots of people and made people reevaluate their lives and go, actually, I'm not just that, I'm this as well, and actually I can do this, and I can do that, and I can explore those areas of my life which I didn't have time necessarily to do before. So you became an author. You started writing, and then the psychologist bit. So talk to me about that.
Well, it was, I mean, initially what I did was the first thing that I did that I was really sort of happy about was that I became a stay-at-home dad. So we had a couple of kids for that period, that first sort of 5 years that the band had split up. And that was tough, but I enjoyed a lot of it, and I'm really, really pleased I did it. I think an awful lot of men should be kind of made to do that for a year or two to kind of to really experience what that's like. And it was great, but then when I had to kind of come back to the real world about 2005, 2006, I really struggled. Because I couldn't imagine myself in the real world. It was a big, and I look back now and I see myself as kind of really lost. I formed another band. I formed a band called Paperlung, and it was almost kind of like I had to go back to what I knew. But my heart wasn't really in it. It was a very strange period around then. I had a really rough couple of years, and it was only really actually me going to therapy around that time that actually got me re-engaged with the psychology, which was originally what I was going to go to university for just as the band started. So that got me re-engaged with that, and suddenly that for me was the importance of therapy, that just being able to have somebody else listening and just kind of saying, why don't you do that? And actually, it wouldn't have come from me, and I don't think it would have come from anybody around me, but somebody else saying, well, you had this interest, picking up on this. Why don't you look at that? And that was it, really. I sort of went back to university. I went back to do my university degree at the age of 37. And just got engaged with that, and that became a new love, and really, from then 2007, for 12 years I was not really interested in music at all, and really the psychology was the only thing I was interested in. I trained for sort of 6 years to get qualified, to get to become a doctor of psychology, and to start to form my own private practice. And I've been in my
Were you
own private
listening to
practice.
music during that time? I mean, were you
Kind
still a
of.
listener, or did you kind of go off listening as well?
Some things. No, no. I've always been a listener. I mean, I always listen to the radio. I mean, I've never been a fanatical listener to music. The thing for me is that I'm always a song lover. So so I very rarely listen to albums. I love. I mean, Spotify's got its ups and downs kind of thing, but actually, the fact that you create playlists of just songs, throughout history, that's what I really love. So yeah, so I still listen to the radio. I still, collect songs that I absolutely loved, but I didn't pick up a guitar or didn't really do anything for myself at all, really, until about 2019.
And yet you were doing everything for yourself because you were building yourself up in other areas of life,
Absolutely, yeah, and
which
giving
is really
myself.
important, isn't it?
Well, massively, massively, and I think one of the things is that I've got a lot more kind of self worth and value out of the psychology stuff than I ever did from being a pop star. I mean, it's different now. Now I do when I do music, it's not about recognition or any of these things, but it's about the pure joy of playing music, and that's what that's really the difference, these days.
Yeah, I think it makes a huge difference. It's quite interesting. We won't go into it too deeply. I'd love to. I'd spend hours talking to you. But why do you think it happens for so many people in their lives that they almost kind of go full circle? Because it's like this. I mean, I started off in kind of radio and broadcasting and
Mm, mm,
things like that, and
yeah.
was interviewing musicians. Back when I was
Mm,
21, I kind of went on a whole journey and then come back. I mean,
mm, mm.
why do you think that kind of process happens?
I mean, I wonder about whether we do it the first time because we're drawn to it for several reasons. We're drawn to it, the creativity, but actually, I think wonder when we're young, whether it's our own thing or whether it's actually a sort of societal cultural thing that you're pushed towards. You need to be successful from this. You need to be make money for this, and whether that's what you're sort of focused on the first time round. As you get older with wisdom, I think you look back and think, actually, it was the thing itself that I loved. It was the
Just
it was
enjoy
the
it.
performing. Absolutely, just enjoy the process of it. And actually, when you get older and you realize it doesn't matter if I make money out of this. It doesn't matter if I'm successful. All that matters is the process of doing this, is the enjoyment out of actually doing the thing. So I think that a lot of people feel, that they move away from it because they feel it wasn't successful or whatever. But I think then they sort of something starts to click again and think, actually, I want to be engaged with that thing again. That was it for me. I mean, when I started picking up the guitar again in about 2019, it was really odd. It was just, I was literally just drawn to doing it. I wanted to play and sing. And the first thing I remember saying to my daughter, saying, "Do you know, I think I might go out busking just to kind of be out there." I wasn't concerned about getting a band together or being on the stage. It was just like, I just want to go out and play. So, I thought about busking for a while.
Yeah. And
Mm,
yet, what happens is, because you're enjoying it, because it's coming from that place, I think other people enjoy it. And the last album in particular got fantastic critical reviews.
mm,
So,
mm.
I think people can sense it in a way
Yeah,
when you've gone that circle yourself, and then you're starting to create again from that almost to that point of pleasure, which is why you
yeah.
started in the first place. People
Hmm.
can sense it in the
Absolutely.
music, and
They certainly can, and certainly from the performances, one of the comments that we actually get a lot is people saying, "You just look like you have having such a good time on stage," and it's because we are, and in a way, it is very different. Back in the day, I used to be sort of worried about playing concerts. It would always be like, "Oh, why aren't we headlining this show?" Or, you know we haven't sold this out. Why aren't we playing bigger? Are we playing well enough? Oh, this isn't going down well enough. All those kind of worries and concerns are just kind of gone when you're older. You're just like, this is great. I just love playing with the people. I love playing to anybody. You know, doesn't matter whether there's 5 people there or 5,000. It doesn't matter. It's just the very action and the process of playing is wonderful.
Listen, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation
No,
today.
no problem at all.
A little psychological romp through your life.
Yeah.
For anyone that doesn't realise, Boo Radleys have an album 8. It's out at the moment. It's their latest album. You can go and stream that, download that to your heart's content, or you can buy physical copies of it if you want to, which helps even more because it pays the mortgage. or helps at least in some respect or form. So no, thank you so much for joining me. As I say, and thank you for the music over the years. It's much appreciated.
Pleasure.
Everybody, this has been Simon or Sice from the Boo Radleys. This has been My Music. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. If you have, please share it with other people. If you haven't, then that's just you being miserable. And I can't really do much about that, really, can I? But still share it with someone else that might actually enjoy this conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. Bye for now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.